You wrote a book, Karen, I think it was the mid-2000s, called "If You Fall, It's a New Beginning." And on the cover of that book, there's a quote, which I'm assuming is from you, which says, "I'd always thought I'd rather be dead than paralyzed." And it sounds like that is no longer the case. I'm curious how you have been able to handle the adversity so well and have, I would argue, an extreme case of post-traumatic growth, which is one of the fields in positive psychology that we look at a little bit within Flow Research Collective. So how did you use the adversity as such a propellant and change how you feel about paralysis so drastically from, before the accident?
Yeah, so that quote's a real quote that I spoke those very words just 12 hours before I became paralyzed. So it's pretty bizarre, and I've noticed that the power of my language is, I think it's true for all of us. The power of our words, of our thoughts, of our language to actually impact reality is maybe greater than most of us credit. And I've certainly experienced profound moments of that being one of them. So yeah, that was my belief. I couldn't imagine anything worse. I was a very physically oriented person still. Oh, that didn't change, but it was like my world's worst nightmare to imagine being paralyzed. I believe inspiration is when we see something in others that we don't think we could do ourselves, or we can't quite comprehend how we would do it. So a lot of people say to me, "You're inspiring," and I kind of resist that and feel awkward about it. But actually, I've realized that it's, if I, 12 hours before my accident, had seen what I've gone on to do, I would have been inspired because I thought I would rather be dead. So I think we just don't know the strength that we have within us to cope with incredible things. We're just conditioned to live a certain way with a certain body and certain cultural and social norms. And then when that all gets thrown up in the air, we don't realize the adaptable capacity that we all have to change to situations that we could never have imagined. And I think the things that have really helped me, a mixture of things. Sometimes trauma on trauma helps. We become like more and more able to keep reframing things in different ways. And not long after I was paralyzed, just 3 months after, a really close friend who I'd spent quite a few summers climbing with went climbing for the first time. He'd not been since my accident. He decided to give it a break and wasn't sure if he wanted to climb anymore. He went climbing for the first time and he died that weekend. And I was still in the hospital. I was waiting for his visit, and the nurses came along to tell me the news. And clearly it was like another crisis for me personally, but much more for his family. It was one of those like incredibly hard things that made me completely reframe my own situation. It's like, well, I'm still here. And that was a huge motivator for me. It would just made me suddenly switch my mind entirely to appreciating the fact I was still alive. And I think, you speak to a lot of people who've had a near-death experience and are still alive, and suddenly they have a new zest for life and a new appreciation of what they have got, instead of sometimes the tendency of being human to focus on what we don't have or what we're lacking. So I think it really taught me to reframe everything in the context of gratitude and of shifting my focus onto appreciating what I have, what I still can do. In the beginning, I did focus a lot on everything that I'd lost, and really my mind was going constantly to what it wished it could do and places it wished it could be and things I wished I could do with friends, etc. And it's just a route to pain if we only focus on what we're missing and what we're lacking and what we can't do. And I guess I quickly realized that. And so everything has just since that day has become reframed. I think the other thing is that when you're in a wheelchair in a world that's not designed for wheels, every single day is full of the unexpected. It is the ultimate in uncertainty and adaptability to all kinds of situations. So maybe I'm lucky that I've never been a kind of anxious person. I don't tend to worry about details. I'm fairly easygoing, but that kind of surprise and unexpected nature of every single moment of every single day almost means that that's also taught me to just constantly look for ways around things, solutions, just always to be open to possibilities and to talk to strangers and ask strangers. And it just kind of opens up this, I call it an adventure mindset. It's like every day is a kind of going on an exploration. And when we live like that, it's an interesting way to live, and I think it opens up a lot more possibilities than if we're living in a much more structured, limited kind of way.
Karen, was there ever a period of regret at having gone on that specific climb or frustration or resentment or anger? And if so, was there a turning point from those sorts of emotions and perspectives into the mindset you have now, or was that a gradual progression?
So this might sound weird and I don't understand it either, but I have never felt anger or regret or if only I'd done that or if only I wouldn't have. Never. It's really odd. I don't know why I've never experienced any of those things, but I haven't. I think the person I was climbing with, he initially was asking a lot of those questions himself, like, if I'd done this differently, would it have happened? Should I have not done this or done that? But I never felt any blame or regret towards anybody, nor myself. But what I think it did do, which has had a really profound impact on my life in a more negative way, is on a much deeper subconscious level, it impacted my ability to trust in my own decisions and to trust in myself. Because something I did on that day led to that accident. And I know when I look back that there was a moment before it, probably about 5 minutes before I fell, when I had a choice just to back down and climb back down and let the person I was with lead the climb, because it was really hard and it was beyond my ability probably. And so I know it was my ego that pushed me through. It was like this desire to, I can do it, I would just keep going. It was kind of ego-led decision making. I suppose I'm really interested in the connection between mind and body, and the fact that I've broken my spine, which kind of cuts off that connection between your head and your heart in a way, in a kind of some kind of metaphorical way, made me, I think it's made me doubt myself a lot as I've gone through life and not trust my decisions. So it's almost like my life journey from that point forward has been about building trust in myself in loads of different ways, in every way possible. And my life before that, I know most people can look at the challenges of their life and attribute them to something difficult that happened in childhood, but I had like a super stable childhood and I don't remember anything that has badly kind of impacted me from my childhood at all. In fact, the week before my accident, I remember thinking, blimey, my life has always been so blessed and fortunate. How lucky am I? But then almost this anticipation that it can't go on like this.
If what you've heard on Flow Research Collective Radio has been helpful, please consider doing us a solid and leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to this. Reviews help us connect to a wider audience so we can get these peak performance principles out to more people.